Underway, of course, in Davos in the Swiss Alps. It brings together political and economic leaders from around the world to discuss issues facing the global economy. Amongst the movers and shakers, as ever, our business editor Stephen Carroll is here. Stephen, President of Iran set to speak there later. Do political issues, though, threaten to overshadow economic ones, would you say there?
Yeah, it's certainly a concern. This, of course, will only be President Hassan Rouhani's second major international speech since he took office. The first, of course, was at the UN last September. Now, he's discussing a whole range of issues. It's being described Iran and the world as the title of his address, due to take place in just under an hour here in Davos. We're expecting him to touch on issues around Syria, explaining perhaps his feelings on why his country was excluded from those talks in Geneva. He's been speaking also to Swiss television while he's been here, saying that perhaps relations with the United States could improve after 3 decades of extreme tension between the two countries. But he's also come to Davos to look to persuade foreign investors to invest in Iran. The Iranian economy has been hard hit by the sanctions imposed on them by the international community. The first of those sanctions have started to be lifted now this week, and that's expected to change things significantly. So President Rouhani will also hopefully touch on those issues and will be using his time here in Davos to meet with many of those investors that may be willing to invest in Iran.
And also there, of course, Stephen, in the Alps, plenty of people talking about the state of the economy.
There certainly is, yeah, and my guest this morning is Stuart Wallace from the New Economics Foundation. Stuart, you have a very particular point of view on how the economy should be run and structured. This is a post-crisis summit, we're told, in Davos. What are you looking to see come out of this?
What we're looking to see, Stephen, is some really radical views of what future business and future economy should look like. We think returning to business as usual is the worst possible thing we can do. And what we're worrying about is the environmental issues are still missing from the story. And while people are talking about inequality here, they're not really grasping the solutions needed. We've seen the wage share of many Western economies drop by 5 or 10 percentage points of GDP. And we're seeing huge inequality. The top 100 CEOs in the UK now have an average 169 times their average worker compared to only 70 10 years ago. So, and you can see worldwide, so, 85 people who fit on a bus have the same wealth as the bottom 2.5 billion. And unless we tackle that inequality problem and the environment problem, we won't solve our problems. We won't create enough jobs, and we'll keep burning up the planet.
And is this the right place to get that message across? Are people receptive to that message here in Davos? You're dealing with the CEOs of the biggest companies in the world.
I think they are surprisingly receptive. The thing they're not, some of the senior business people are receptive and they're really thoughtful. Politicians aren't getting it. So we think actually a combination of civil society and business people need to persuade the politicians to start changing the rules of the game. Because they don't, we're, as Christine Lagarde said, we're fried toast, etc. And you get really good economists like Nick Stern, who wrote the Stern report on the economics of climate change, saying we're heading for 4 degrees now. That was the discussion I had with him yesterday. And we'll have mass migration of probably up to 1 billion people across this planet, as well as huge destruction of our cities if we go down the 4 degrees route. So we've got to have tell a story not just of doom, but tell a compelling story of what the new economy needs to look like. So we need a compelling new narrative. It's going to need to be the scale of the 2 big changes in Western economies in the 20th century. The first, the move to Keynesianism in the 30s, 40s, 50s, with much greater collective responsibility in the role of state. And then we had the move to neoliberalism in the 70s, 80s, post the oil price shock, with a much greater focus on individuals and markets. We need a new story now, which is neither of those.
And what we've seen most of, certainly in Europe in recent years, is austerity policies, cuts. That doesn't seem to be going away in the future. You've been looking at this particularly in the United Kingdom. What needs to be done instead, do you think?
Well, we think that what happened in austerity in the UK was one of the biggest unforced errors. If it'd been Greece, you probably would have had to act like that. But the Chancellor has lost us 3 years and a lot of jobs and livelihoods and a lot of suffering. So what's needed is a really good focus on how we create enough good jobs for people, get a living wage, get some more collective bargaining coming back, and give more power to working people. Unless we do that, we're going to see inequality continuing to grow dramatically.
But at the same time, governments do need to cut deficits, bring down their debt. How do they do that at the same time?
Well, Some of them are just, there's certainly been waste in public services. You need to cut some of that, but you need to get the economy on a really sound foot with good demand before you cut things. Otherwise, all you're doing is cutting public services, and that's jobs that go, that then communities that lose their income, then which private sector loses their income. So it's not, the old crowding out theory is just simply not true when you're running an economy below capacity.
Stuart Wallace from the New Economics Foundation, thank you. Just before we go, a quick look at what's happening on the markets here in Europe. It's in a broadly negative start to the day. This after a new survey of manufacturing output in China showed disappointing results, which sent shares into the red. In France, a survey of output of the private sector there showing the third consecutive month of contraction. The CAC 40, as you can see, down 0.1%. Over in Asia, those shares hit by that Chinese data as well. The Hang Seng and Hong Kong down by over 1%, while the Nikkei and the Shanghai shares were also hit too. That's all from Davos for now, but with plenty more coverage throughout the day here on France 24. But until then, it's back to you, Stuart.
Thanks very much, Stephen. Yeah, Marcus Carlson will be here a little bit later on from Davos on France 24, and Stephen back, of course, same time tomorrow. Now,